Ever notice how cheaters always claim they're working late on Thursdays? Like infidelity has office hours or something. Well, my husband Barrett spent 3 years perfecting his Thursday night routine, coming home at 10 p.m. smelling like hotel soap and ambition, feeding me corporate buzzwords about synergy sessions and stakeholder alignment. Turns out the only thing he was aligning was his schedule with Brittany from marketing, and the only stakeholder meetings were happening in hotel rooms. I'm Cora Lawson, and I discovered my husband's affair the way every modern woman does, through social media stalking during my lunch break. There I was, eating a mediocre whole food salad at my desk at TechShield Solutions, mindlessly scrolling Instagram, when Brittany Hayes, a perky 22-year-old intern at Barrett's consulting firm who I'd met exactly once at the company Christmas party, posted a story. Not just any story. A boomerang of her manicured hand holding a glass of rosé, tagged at the Roosevelt Room on East 6th Street, with the caption, "Thursday vibes with my favorite person." The Roosevelt Room. Downtown Austin. At 7:43 p.m. on a Thursday. You know what's fascinating about that? My husband had texted me 2 hours earlier saying he was in a critical strategy meeting with a client in South Congress and wouldn't be home until late. South Congress is a solid 15-minute drive from East 6th Street. And unless his client was a craft cocktail, something wasn't adding up. But here's where it gets delicious. Brittany, bless her Gen Z heart, had her location services turned on. Because of course she did. These kids document every breath like they're collecting evidence for their future biographers. So there it was, geotagged proof that she was exactly 3 blocks from where my husband claimed to be stuck in back-to-back stakeholder reviews. I sat there, Caesar salad turning to cardboard in my mouth, staring at that stupid boomerang. The rational part of my brain, the part that debugs security protocols and identifies system vulnerabilities for a living, started running scenarios. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Barrett's meeting ended early and he grabbed a drink nearby. Maybe Brittany was there with other people and just happened to be in the same area. But the gut instinct part of my brain? The part that had been noticing little things for months. The new cologne. The gym membership he suddenly cared about. The way he angled his phone away from me when texting. That part knew exactly what I was looking at. I did what any self-respecting cybersecurity analyst would do. I investigated. And by investigated, I mean I fell down a rabbit hole of Brittany's Instagram that would make the FBI proud. Scrolling back through 3 months of posts, a pattern emerged that hit me like a freight train made of red flags. Every single Thursday evening posts. August 29th, Thursday. Wine. Wednesday came late this week. Tagged at Uncle Julio's on West 6th, August 22nd, Thursday. Needed this. Tagged at Luster Pearl South August 15th, Thursday. No post, but a gap in her usual posting schedule that lined up perfectly with Barrett telling me he had an overnight client presentation in Houston, August 8th, Thursday. Best conversations happen over tacos. Tagged at Torchy's on South Lamar and Barrett. Barrett had told me he was working late. Every single one of those Thursdays. My husband, who claimed he was so dedicated to his career that he couldn't even make it home for dinner one night a week, was apparently spending those nights touring Austin's bar scene with an intern who was born the year Britney Spears released Oops, I Did It Again. The rage that hit me wasn't the hot, explosive kind. It was cold, calculated. The kind of anger that makes you dangerously calm because you're too busy planning your next move to waste energy on emotions. I screenshot everything. Every tagged location. Every suspiciously timed post. Every comment from her friends that suddenly made horrifying sense. He's so lucky. You two are goals. When's he gonna make it official already? Make it official? Like this was some kind of legitimate courtship. And not my husband committing both adultery and probably violating every HR policy in Meridian Tech Consulting's employee handbook. That evening, Barrett came home at his usual Thursday time, 9:47 p.m. I watched him walk through the door of our South Lamar condo, designer messenger bag slung over his shoulder, tie loosened in that calculated way that's supposed to communicate exhaustion. He kissed my forehead, like I was his elderly aunt, and headed straight for the shower. Because, of course he did. How was the client meeting? I called out, my voice steady as I stood in our kitchen, wine glass in hand, phone burning a hole in my pocket with its cargo of evidence. Brutal, he yelled back over the running water. Jenkins from the Austin portfolio wanted to restructure the entire Q4 roadmap. We were in that conference room for 5 straight hours. I'm dead. Jenkins. The Austin portfolio. Conference room. He had his lies so polished they practically gleamed. I wondered how long he'd been workshopping this particular fiction. Probably during the Uber ride home from whatever bar he'd actually been at. I waited until he was out of the shower. Waited until he was in his pajamas, scrolling through his phone on the couch. Waited until he was comfortable and unsuspecting. Then I sat down next to him, opened Instagram on my phone, and pulled up Brittany's story. Hey, weird question, I said, voice light and conversational. Didn't you say your meeting tonight was in South Congress? Yeah, why? He didn't even look up from his phone. Because Brittany from your office posted from a bar downtown, on 6th Street, at the exact time you said you were in your meeting. I turned my phone screen toward him. Small world, right? The pause that followed was exquisite. I watched the micro-expressions flash across his face. Confusion, recognition, panic, calculation. Like someone frantically shuffling through a mental Rolodex of excuses. He landed on indignation. Are you seriously stalking my coworkers on social media now? He had the audacity, the absolute balls, to sound offended. Cora, that's actually kind of concerning. And that's when I knew. Not just that he was cheating, but that he thought I was stupid enough to believe him. You're right, I said, standing up and heading toward our bedroom. I'm the concerning one in this scenario, not the guy who's been lying about working late every Thursday for 3 months. I'm not lying, he called after me. The meeting ended early, and some of us grabbed drinks after. Brittany must have been there with her friends. Jesus Christ, Cora. Are you seriously starting a fight because you saw someone from my office at a bar? I closed the bedroom door without answering and sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my phone. The gaslighting had already begun. This was going to be worse than I thought. But here's what Barrett didn't know. I spend 40 hours a week identifying security vulnerabilities and exploitation vectors, and he had just become my primary target. Friday morning arrived with all the warmth of a corporate email announcing exciting organizational changes. Barrett left for work at 7 a.m. like nothing had happened, kissing me goodbye with the same enthusiasm he'd show a parking meter. I called in sick to TechShield, first time in 2 years, and spent the day doing what I do best, gathering intelligence. See, here's the thing about being married to someone for 3 years. You know their passwords. Not because you're controlling or paranoid, but because they ask you to check that email real quick, or can you order something on my Amazon? Barrett used the same password for everything. Sullivan 2019, the year he made senior consultant. Original, right? Like a fortune cookie wrote his security protocols. I logged into his laptop, which he conveniently left at home because the office has better monitors, and found a digital trail that would make Hansel and Gretel jealous. Venmo transactions to Brittany, dozens of them. $47 for dinner, $23 for drinks, $156 for concert tickets. My husband was literally keeping receipts of his affair, organized by date like a really depressing expense report. But the real gold mine was his messages app synced to his computer. 3 months of conversations that read like a bad romance novel written by someone who peaked in a college fraternity. Barrett to Brittany, August 3rd. Can't stop thinking about Thursday. You make me feel alive again. Alive again. Like he was a Victorian lady recovering from consumption and not a 36-year-old man having a midlife crisis with someone who still had a fake ID last year. Brittany to Barrett, August 10th. When are you finally gonna leave her? I'm tired of being your secret. Barrett to Brittany, August 10th. Soon, babe. I promise. Just need to wait until after my Q3 bonus clears. Divorce is expensive and I need to make sure I'm set up right. Oh. So I wasn't just the wife he was cheating on. I was a financial inconvenience he was waiting to cash out on before discarding. That's actually impressively sociopathic when you think about it. I screenshot everything, every message, every Venmo transaction. Every single piece of evidence that would hold up in Texas family court, which, fun fact, is not a no-fault state. Adultery actually matters here. Who knew being Southern had perks? Then I did something that would either make me a genius or get me arrested. I installed monitoring software on his phone the next time he left it unattended. Nothing illegal, just the same parental control app that soccer moms use to track their teenagers. Barrett's iPhone became my personal reality TV show, streaming live updates of every text, call, and location ping. The stuff I learned over the next week would have been hilarious if it wasn't my actual life. Monday, September 16th, 2:47 p.m. Barrett texted his buddy Marcus. "Cora's being weird. Think she suspects something. Might need to cool it with beef for a while." Marcus: "Dude, just break up with your wife already. You've been complaining about her for months." Barrett: "It's complicated. She makes good money and we have the condo. Divorce would wreck me financially." Ah, yes. Love in the time of joint assets and dual incomes. Shakespeare could never. Tuesday, September 17th, 11:23 a.m. Brittany sent Barrett a voice memo I had the absolute displeasure of listening to while eating my lunch. She was crying, actually sobbing, about how she couldn't do this anymore and deserved to be someone's first choice, not their Thursday night entertainment. Barrett's response: "Baby, you are my first choice. Cora's she's a placeholder until I can figure out the exit strategy. 2 more months? Tops. I promise. A placeholder. 3 years of marriage, and I'd been demoted to human furniture. At least he didn't call me vintage or gently used." Wednesday, September 18th, 8:34 p.m. Barrett went to a networking event, by which I mean he went to Brittany's apartment on East Riverside. I know because the GPS tracking helpfully provided the exact address. He stayed until 11:47 p.m. The networking must have been very thorough. When he came home smelling like her perfume, something aggressively floral that probably cost $12 at Target, I was sitting on the couch watching The Office reruns. "How was networking?" I asked, not looking up from the TV. "Exhausting. Tech industry people are so pretentious." He collapsed next to me, actually had the audacity to put his head on my shoulder. "I'm glad I have you to come home to. You keep me grounded." I patted his head like he was a golden retriever who'd just tracked mud through the house. "That's me. Ground control to Major Liar." "What?" "Nothing. TV reference." I turned up the volume on Michael Scott's voice and mentally added another item to my evidence folder. Gaslighting. Level expert. Thursday, September 19th. Exactly 1 week after the Instagram discovery, I made my decision. Barrett had his weekly late meeting scheduled, which meant another rendezvous with Brittany. But this Thursday was different. This Thursday, I was done playing detective. It was time to become the prosecutor, judge, and jury. I spent that entire Thursday at work, legitimately doing my job, but with a side project that would have made my security clearance very nervous. See, Meridian Tech Consulting, Barrett's company, had recently upgraded their presentation systems. State-of-the-art wireless displays, cloud-connected, controllable from any device with the right credentials. And their IT department? Let's just say their password protocols were about as secure as a screen door on a submarine. It took me 47 minutes to access their network remotely, another 20 to identify the conference room where next week's Q3 all-hands meeting would take place, the quarterly gathering where the CEO, all directors, and the entire 200-person staff assembled to review company performance and celebrate wins. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday, September 26th, 2 p.m. Main conference hall with the 90-inch display screen. I smiled at my computer monitor like a supervillain who'd just figured out the hero's secret identity. Barrett came home that night at 10:15 p.m., later than usual. He looked guilty, actually, legitimately rattled, which was new. "Everything okay?" I asked, pouring myself wine in the kitchen. "Yeah, just long day." He loosened his tie. Wouldn't meet my eyes. "Client was difficult." "Client have a name?" "What?" "The difficult client." "Do they have a name?" I took a sip of wine, watched him calculate his response in real time. Jenkins. Same guy from last week. Real pain about the Q4 deliverables." Jenkins. I nodded thoughtfully. Sounds rough. There was no Jenkins. I'd checked Barrett's calendar, his emails, his entire client roster. Jenkins was a fictional character he'd created as his alibi, probably named after some random person he went to college with. "I'm gonna grab a shower," he said, escaping toward the bathroom. "Hey, Barrett," I called after him. He turned, eyebrows raised. "How's the Q3 presentation coming along? For next week's all-hands meeting?" Something flickered across his face. Surprised that I knew about it, maybe. "Fine. Standard quarterly review stuff." "Why?" "Just curious. I know how important these presentations are for you." I smiled sweetly. "Career-defining, even." He stared at me for a beat too long, like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. Then he nodded and disappeared into the bathroom. I waited until I heard the shower running, then opened my laptop and began the final phase of my preparation. Because Barrett was right about one thing, next week's presentation was going to be career-defining, just not in the way he expected. Friday, September 20th, brought an unexpected gift. Barrett's mother called. Linda Sullivan wasn't what you'd call a warm person. She was the kind of woman who gave you a hug that felt like a performance review. Stiff, obligatory, checking boxes. But she loved her son with the fierce, illogical devotion of someone who'd raised him alone after his dad died when Barrett was 12. Which meant she also had opinions about me. "Cora, sweetheart," Linda's voice crackled through my phone at 9 a.m. "I'm calling because I'm worried about Barrett." I was at my desk at TechShield, 3 monitors glowing with code and security protocols. "Worried how?" "He seems distant lately, distracted. I called him Tuesday night and he barely talked to me. Just said he was dealing with work stress." She paused and I could practically hear her clutching her pearls. "Is everything okay with you two? Marriage-wise?" The irony was so thick I could have spread it on toast. Here was my mother-in-law, calling to check if I was taking proper care of her cheating son, like I was a caretaker who'd neglected to water the plants. "Everything's fine, Linda," I lied smoothly. "You know how Q3 crunch time gets. He's just buried in presentations and client deliverables. Well, make sure he's eating properly and getting enough sleep. He works too hard. Oh, he's definitely getting plenty of rest on Thursdays," I said, voice dripping with double meaning she'd never catch. "Very thorough about his weekly routine? That's good, dear. You're such a good wife to him." I hung up and stared at my phone, something clicking into place in my brain. Linda, Barrett's mother, who lived in Pflugerville in a little house Barrett helped her buy with his first big bonus. Barrett, who called his mom every Sunday without fail, who'd moved back to Texas specifically to be closer to her after his dad died. Barrett, who'd told Brittany he was going to leave me in 2 months, but hadn't mentioned a single word of it to the woman he called for advice about which car insurance to buy. That's when I realized he wasn't actually planning to leave me. Not really. This whole thing with Brittany, it was a fantasy he was maintaining. A ego boost. A mid-30s crisis wrapped in the body of a girl who probably still had a student parking pass. He was never going to blow up his comfortable life. The dual income, the nice condo, the wife who handled all the boring adult stuff while he played consultant superhero at work. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Probably literally, given how many dessert receipts I'd found on those Venmo transactions. But here's what really made my blood run cold. Barrett was smart enough to know exactly what he was doing. The calculated timeline around his bonus, the careful construction of alibis, the way he'd positioned me as the problem to his friends while maintaining perfect husband status to his mother. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. And if he was playing strategic games, then I needed to level up my own playbook. Saturday, September 21st, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called a lawyer. Patricia Montgomery worked in family law, came highly recommended by a colleague at TechShield who'd gone through a nuclear divorce 2 years ago. Her office was in downtown Austin, and I made an appointment under my maiden name, Cora Hendricks, just to be safe. Patricia was exactly what I needed. Sharp, no nonsense, with the kind of energy that suggested she'd seen every variation of human betrayal and was surprised by none of it. "Texas is a community property state," she explained. sliding a box of tissues across her desk even though I wasn't crying. But adultery can impact the division of assets, especially if there's proof of dissipation of marital funds. Dissipation? I pulled out my phone, opened the folder of screenshots. You mean like spending joint money on your affair partner? Patricia's eyes lit up like I'd just handed her a winning lottery ticket. Show me everything. I did. Every Venmo transaction, every text message about leaving me after the bonus clears, every piece of evidence I'd collected over 9 days of surveillance. Patricia scrolled through my phone, shaking her head slowly. This is actually a very strong case. The electronic evidence alone would hold up beautifully in court. And the fact that he's explicitly planning his timeline around financial gain? That's calculated deception. A judge would not look kindly on this. What kind of settlement are we talking about? With this evidence, you'd likely get more than the standard 50-50 split. Maybe 60-40, possibly more depending on the judge. Plus, if you want to pursue alienation of affection against the company... Wait, what? Patricia smiled like a shark who'd just spotted blood in the water. Brittany Hayes is his subordinate, correct? An intern under his direct supervision? Yes. That's a hostile work environment. Sexual harassment. Abuse of power. Meridian Tech Consulting has liability here, especially if they knew or should have known about the relationship and did nothing. She leaned back in her leather chair. You could potentially sue both Barrett and the company. We're talking 6 figures easily, maybe more. I sat there, absorbing this information like a computer processing new data. I'd come in here thinking about divorce. Patricia was describing corporate warfare. How long would that take? Court proceedings, settlement negotiations, months, maybe a year if they fight it. But with evidence this solid, most companies settle fast. They don't want this going public, and they definitely don't want it going to trial. What if I wanted something faster? I asked slowly. More immediate. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Immediate like what? Like public humiliation that forces their hand into settling quickly. She studied me for a long moment, then closed my phone and slid it back across the desk. I didn't hear you say that. But hypothetically, if evidence of this affair were to become public knowledge within the company, say, through some kind of workplace incident, it would certainly accelerate the settlement timeline. Companies move very fast when they're trying to contain PR disasters. We looked at each other, an entire conversation happening in the silence. Hypothetically, I said. Hypothetically, Patricia agreed. Now, let's talk about my retainer. Sunday, September 22nd was the hardest day. Barrett wanted to go to brunch. We went to Snooze on South Lamar, one of those trendy breakfast places with a line out the door, and pancakes that cost $16. Barrett ordered the bourbon bacon pancakes and talked about work drama like we were a normal couple having a normal Sunday. Jenkins is being impossible about the restructure, he said, cutting into his stack. Honestly, might just need to loop in the Austin VP to get him in line. Jenkins, his imaginary difficult client. I wondered if he'd practiced saying the name in the mirror until it sounded natural. I said, pushing Eggs Benedict around my plate. Sounds frustrating. Yeah. But hey, Q3 meeting is this Thursday. Once that's done, things should calm down. He reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Maybe we can plan a trip. Get out of Austin for a weekend? I looked at his hand on mine. The same hand that had been texting Brittany 2 more months I promise 3 days ago, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just the cold, mechanical calculation of someone executing a plan. That sounds nice, I said, squeezing back. Thursday, you said? What time's the meeting? 2 p.m. Should be done by 4. Well, I lifted my mimosa in a toast. Here's to a successful Q3 presentation. Barrett clinked his glass against mine, smiling like he'd already won something. He had no idea he was toasting at his own funeral. Monday through Wednesday were a blur of preparation. I worked my normal tech shield hours, came home to Barrett at normal times, maintained the facade of normal marriage. But every spare moment, lunch breaks, bathroom breaks, the hour after Barrett fell asleep, I was working on my masterpiece. The technical part was easy. I'd already accessed Meridian's presentation system. Now I just needed to create the content. I compiled everything into a video file: screenshots of texts, Venmo transactions, voice memos from Brittany crying about being the other woman, even security footage I'd pulled from the parking lot of the Roosevelt Room showing Barrett and Brittany kissing next to his car. But the real genius? I added timestamps, dates, locations. A complete timeline of their affair laid out like a corporate quarterly report, complete with bullet points and pie charts showing how much of Barrett's overtime was spent with his intern. I titled it, Q3 Performance Review, Barrett Sullivan. Wednesday night, September 25th, the night before the all-hands meeting. Barrett was nervous. Actually anxious in a way I'd never seen him. "You okay?" I asked, watching him pace the living room at 11 p.m. "Yeah, just big presentation tomorrow. Want it to go well." "It will," I said, and meant it. "Trust me. Tomorrow's presentation is going to be unforgettable." He looked at me, something uncertain flickering in his eyes. "Why are you being so nice? After last week, the Instagram thing, I thought you were mad." "I was overreacting," I said simply. "You were right. I was being paranoid. I'm sorry." The relief on his face was almost sad. He actually believed I'd backed down, that I'd accepted his gaslighting and moved on like a good little wife. "I love you," he said, kissing my forehead. "I know," I replied, channeling my inner Han Solo. Thursday morning, September 26th, Barrett left for work at 7 a.m. sharp. I waited until 7:03, then opened my laptop and uploaded my video file to Meridian's cloud system, scheduled to override their presentation at exactly 2 p.m. Then I called in sick to TechShield again, and I made popcorn. Because at 2 p.m., I was going to watch my husband's entire world implode in real time. Thursday, September 26th, 1:47 p.m. I sat on my couch with my laptop open, remotely connected to Meridian Tech Consulting's network. My hands weren't shaking. My heart rate was steady. This is what 3 years of marriage to a liar gets you. Ice-cold composure when it matters most. At 1:55 p.m., I watched through the security camera feed as 200 employees filed into Meridian's main conference hall. The energy was typical corporate. People clutching coffee cups, checking phones, that low hum of small talk before a mandatory meeting. I spotted Barrett in the third row, sitting next to his buddy Marcus. He looked confident, relaxed, probably relieved his presentation slides were already loaded and ready to go. Brittany sat in the back row, I noticed, trying to be inconspicuous. Smart girl. Well, smartish. She was still dating a married man who called her baby in text messages, so let's not oversell her intelligence. At 1:58 p.m., the CEO, a silver-haired man named Richard Caldwell, who looked like he'd been grown in a lab specifically to lead quarterly meetings, stepped up to the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. We've got a lot to cover today, so I'll keep my intro brief." I watched Barrett's face on the camera feed. He was half listening, scrolling through his phone under the table, probably texting Brittany, who was 20 feet away from him. The audacity was almost impressive. At 2 p.m. exactly, Richard clicked the remote to advance to the first slide. The 90-inch screen went black for a beat. Then my title card appeared in crisp 4K resolution. Q3 Performance Review, Barrett Sullivan. Subtitle: A Case Study in Professional Misconduct and Really Bad Operational Security. The conference room went silent. That specific kind of silence that happens when 200 brains simultaneously process that something is very, very wrong. Richard fumbled with the remote, clicking frantically. Nothing happened. I'd locked him out of the system completely. "Technical difficulties," Richard announced, his voice tight. Can someone—" The video started playing. First image: a screenshot of Barrett's Venmo transaction to Brittany Hayes. August 3rd, 47ers. Memo: Best Thursday ever. The room's silence somehow got louder. Second image: text message exchange. Barrett to Brittany: Can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive again. I heard someone gasp. Possibly multiple someones. Third image: another Venmo. August 10th. $23. Memo: Drinks with my favorite person. Barrett shot to his feet. Someone hacked the system. This isn't. Fourth image: Barrett's text to Marcus. Cora's being weird. Thinks she suspects something. Might need to cool it with B for a while. Marcus, sitting next to Barrett, physically recoiled like Barrett had suddenly become radioactive. Fifth image. Brittany's tear-soaked voice memo transcribed with timestamp. I can't do this anymore. I deserve to be someone's first choice, not their Thursday night entertainment. Barrett's response displayed right below it. Baby, you are my first choice. Cora's she's a placeholder, until I can figure out the exit strategy. 2 more months, tops. I promise. The placeholder line hit exactly as hard as I'd hoped. I watched on the security feed as people turned to look at Barrett with expressions ranging from horror to barely contained glee. There's nothing corporate warriors love more than watching someone else's career spontaneously combust. Turn it off! Barrett was shouting now, actually screaming at the IT department guys who were frantically typing on laptops. Someone turn this off right now! But I wasn't done. Not even close. The video continued. A montage of Instagram geotags showing Brittany at various Austin bars and restaurants, each one timestamped on a Thursday evening. Next to each timestamp, Barrett's text messages to me claiming to be in late client meetings. Then came the parking lot security footage. Barrett and Brittany, September 12th, 9:34 p.m., kissing next to his car at the Roosevelt Room. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. His hand in her hair, her arms around his neck, the kind of kiss that leaves absolutely zero room for, it's not what it looks like, defenses. Someone in the conference room actually said, "Oh my God," out loud. The final slide was my personal favorite. A pie chart titled Barrett Sullivan's Q3 Overtime Hours Breakdown. Client meetings, 2%. Actual work, 8%. Affair with subordinate intern, 90%. Below it, bullet points in professional corporate font. 14 Thursday, late meetings. Actually dates with Brittany Hayes, marketing intern. $847 in marital funds spent on affair partner via Venmo, 300 plus, inappropriate text messages to subordinate employee, multiple instances of lying to spouse, colleagues, and supervisors, 0 actual overtime work completed. The screen went black, then displayed one final message. This presentation brought to you by Cora Lawson, the placeholder wife. Barrett, I want a divorce. Everyone else, I'm so sorry you had to see this, but I figured you all deserve to know what kind of dedicated professional you've been working with. Brittany, honey, he was never going to leave me. He told his mom last week that everything was fine with us. You were the side project, not the upgrade. HR, you're welcome for documenting this hostile work environment for you. My lawyer will be in touch. The system released control back to IT, and the screen returned to the normal presentation software. But the damage, the beautiful, catastrophic damage, was already done. Richard Caldwell looked like someone had replaced his blood with ice water. Barrett Sullivan, Brittany Hayes, my office. Now. Barrett tried to make eye contact with people as he walked out. No one would look at him. Marcus literally turned his chair away. I watched Brittany follow Barrett out of the conference room, mascara already running down her face. She looked young and stupid and devastated, which was exactly the combination of emotions someone should feel when they realize they threw away their career for a man who called his wife a placeholder. The meeting continued without them, but I didn't keep watching. I'd seen enough. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang. Barrett. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. 14 times in 30 minutes. Finally, I answered. Hey, how was the presentation? How could you do this? He was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You just destroyed my career. You humiliated me in front of the entire company. Weird, I said calmly. I thought I was just sharing your Q3 performance metrics with your colleagues. You know, transparency. Isn't that what good companies value? This isn't funny, Cora. Do you have any idea what you've done? Actually, yes. I documented your affair with a subordinate employee, your misuse of company time, and your violation of approximately 17 different HR policies. What did you do? Oh, right. You committed adultery and fraud. Potato. I'm going to sue you. This is This is illegal hacking or something. Interesting theory. Except I didn't hack anything. I accessed a system using credentials that were embarrassingly easy to obtain because your company's IT security is a joke. Also, everything I showed was 100% truthful information obtained from your own devices, which in Texas are considered marital property. So legally, I'm good. Morally, I'm great. How are you doing, career-wise? Silence. Then, they fired me. Both of you? Yes. Brittany's gone too. They said, they're talking about lawsuits, hostile work environment, abuse of power. His voice cracked. Cora, please. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Here's what you're going to do, I said, voice hardening. You're going to pack your things from our condo. You have until Sunday. Then you're going to sign whatever divorce papers my lawyer sends you. And you're not going to fight me on the settlement because if you do, I will make sure every tech consulting firm in Texas knows exactly why you got fired. This industry is smaller than you think, Barrett. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe your mom's place? I'm sure Linda would love to hear all about your work stress. I hung up before he could respond. At 4:15 p.m., Patricia Montgomery called. I just got a very frantic call from Meridian Tech Consulting's legal team, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. They're extremely interested in settling quickly and quietly. Something about a video that went viral internally? Huh, imagine that. They're offering $180,000 to make this go away. Plus, they'll pay your legal fees. I did the math in my head. With the settlement and my half of the condo equity, I was looking at enough to buy that warehouse district loft I'd been eyeing and still have money left over. Tell them $200,000 and we have a deal. Done. Cora? Yeah? That was the most beautifully executed piece of revenge I've seen in 20 years of family law. Brava. 6 months later, and I'm sitting in my warehouse district loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lady Bird Lake, drinking overpriced coffee and reflecting on the beautiful chaos that became my life's most important plot twist. The divorce was finalized in November. Barrett signed everything Patricia put in front of him without a fight. Turns out, getting publicly fired for sleeping with an intern really kills your negotiating power. The settlement gave me 65% of our marital assets, plus the $200,000 from Meridian Tech Consulting. Barrett got his car, his bruised ego, and a one-way ticket to his mother's place in Pflugerville. Linda called me exactly once after everything went down. I raised him better than this, she said, voice tight with shame. I'm so sorry, Cora. You deserved better. It was the closest thing to a genuine moment we'd ever shared. I told her I appreciated it, and that I hoped Barrett figured himself out eventually. I even meant it. Mostly. The tech consulting world in Austin is exactly as small as I threatened it would be. Word spread fast about Barrett's spectacular implosion. You can't have a video of your affair broadcast to 200 colleagues and expect it to stay quiet. Within 3 weeks, his LinkedIn profile went from senior consultant at Meridian Tech Consulting to open to opportunities. Last I heard, he was doing freelance project management from his mom's spare bedroom and dating someone age-appropriate he met on Hinge. Good for him, honestly. Character growth is important. Brittany deleted all her social media the day after the incident. Probably smart. Hard to be an influencer when your claim to fame is being the intern who got caught on a 90-inch screen making out with her married boss. She moved back to San Antonio to live with her parents. I hope she learned something valuable about checking whether your boyfriend is actually planning to leave his wife before you start planning your future together. The real surprise was what happened at my job. Turns out, when you successfully expose corporate misconduct and document a hostile work environment so thoroughly that a company settles for 6 figures in 3 weeks, other companies notice. TechShield promoted me to lead security analyst with a 30% raise. My director told me, and I quote, "Anyone who can infiltrate a system that cleanly while gathering airtight legal evidence is exactly who we want protecting our clients. So apparently, ruining your husband's life is good for your career." Who knew? I've thought a lot about what I'd say if I ran into Barrett somewhere. Austin's not that big, and we used to frequent the same places. Whole Foods on Lamar, the Trader Joe's on North Loop, that one good taco truck on South Congress. But 6 months later, I still haven't seen him. Maybe he's avoiding our old haunts. Maybe the universe is just being kind. If I did see him, though, I think I'd say thank you. Not for the cheating. Not for the gaslighting or the lying or calling me a placeholder like I was a stock photo waiting to be replaced with something more aesthetically pleasing. But for being so monumentally bad at covering his tracks that he made my decision easy. Because here's the thing about betrayal. Sometimes it's not the knife in your back that hurts the most. It's the moment you realize you saw it coming and ignored it anyway. The new cologne, the sudden gym membership, the way he started treating Thursday nights like they were sacred. I noticed all of it and told myself I was being paranoid. The Instagram story didn't reveal the affair. It just gave me permission to stop pretending I didn't already know. My therapist, yes, I got a therapist, because even satisfying revenge comes with emotional processing, asked me once if I regretted how I handled everything. You could have just filed for divorce quietly, Dr. Martinez pointed out during one of our sessions. Why the public humiliation? I thought about it for a minute. Because quiet divorce would have let him control the narrative. He would have told everyone I was crazy, paranoid, couldn't handle his success. He'd already started that story with his friends. I saw the texts. So it was about reclaiming your narrative? It was about making sure there was only one narrative. The true one. I shrugged. Also, yeah, the public humiliation felt good. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend this was all high-minded justice. Some of it was just revenge, pure and simple. Dr. Martinez smiled. Well, at least you're honest about it. Last week, I got a message on LinkedIn from someone named Jessica Hartwell. She worked at Meridian Tech Consulting. Different department, never met Barrett. But she'd been in that conference room on September 26th. I just wanted to say thank you, her message read. What you did was brave. After your presentation, 3 other women came forward about inappropriate behavior from senior staff. The company had to completely overhaul their policies. You changed things here. I stared at that message for a long time. I'd thought my revenge was personal. Selfish, even. A scorched earth response to being lied to and disrespected. But apparently, it had been something bigger. A catalyst. Proof that actions have consequences, even for men who think they're too important to face them. I didn't set out to be someone's inspiration or to change company policies. I just wanted Barrett to feel a fraction of the humiliation he'd put me through. But I'll take the accidental feminism. Sure. Why not? These days, my life looks different in ways I never expected. I live alone and actually like it. I go to dinner parties where I'm just Cora instead of Barrett's wife. I make decisions without considering someone else's opinion first. Which restaurant to try, which movie to watch, whether to stay in on a Friday night or go out. The loft is smaller than the condo Barrett and I shared, but it's mine. Completely, legally, financially mine. The mortgage is in my name only. The furniture I picked out without compromise. Even the coffee mugs are exactly what I wanted. Quirky ones from local Austin artists instead of the boring matching set Barrett insisted made us look put together. I adopted a cat, named her Karma. She's orange, loud, and knocks things off counters for no reason. Barrett would have hated her. I love her completely. Sometimes people ask if I'm dating again. The answer is no, but not because I'm traumatized or broken. I'm just recalibrating. Remembering who I am when I'm not performing the role of supportive wife to someone who saw me as an obstacle to his happiness. Turns out, I'm pretty interesting on my own. I take cybersecurity courses on weekends because I actually enjoy them, not because they look good on a resume. I go to concerts alone. I've started writing. Nothing serious, just observations about tech culture and modern relationships that might become a blog someday. I'm building a life that doesn't need anyone else's validation to feel complete. And maybe eventually I'll meet someone worth sharing it with. Someone who doesn't see partnership as a placeholder arrangement until something better comes along. Someone who understands that working late means actually working, and Thursday nights are just Thursday nights. But if I don't, if it's just me, Karma the cat, and this loft overlooking the lake for the foreseeable future, that's honestly more than enough. Here's what I learned from 3 years of marriage to a liar. Betrayal doesn't destroy you unless you let it. Yeah, Barrett lied. He cheated. He wasted 3 years of my life and $840 of our money on someone who could have been his daughter, but I got myself back. And in the end, watching him lose everything, his job, his reputation, his comfortable life, while I gained a promotion, a settlement, and my self-respect, that math works out pretty beautifully. So to Barrett, wherever you are in that Pflugerville spare bedroom, thanks for being terrible at operational security, thanks for underestimating me, and thanks for giving me the greatest gift a bad husband can give his wife, a really, really good reason to leave. The last thing I posted on social media after everything settled was a photo of my new loft at sunset. Golden light streaming through those big windows, Karma sitting on the windowsill looking majestic. Caption: turns out the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living better than you ever could have if they'd stayed. Barrett didn't like the post, but 847 other people did. Funny how numbers work out sometimes.